FSB. FSB.
Hello and welcome to this latest FSB webinar brought to you in conjunction with NESCAFÉ. I'm Dave Sharp, a professional MC and BBC broadcaster, and I'll be your host for today's session, which today focuses on well-being at work, specifically issues around taking breaks, around loneliness, around chatting, talking, and generally our well-being in the workplace. That's whether you're working in an office environment, maybe in a factory, outside, or like me, from home. So whether you're a sole trader or an employer of up to 250 employees, today is for you. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be focusing on why it's important, what will happen if you don't address some of these issues, and more importantly than all of that is we'll be sharing some tips. And who better to do that than our experts who I'm joined with today. Nadia Roberts is the brand manager for NESCAFÉ Out of Home and also leading on the Make Chat Work campaign. Hannah Thomas is here from solicitor as a Markel Law. Andrew Payne, good friend of mine, speaker and coach and mentor, and Binny Ludlow from Binny Fine Foods is here as well. So what I will say is if you've got a question, some of you have submitted them before, we'll read them out towards the end. If you've got one before then just add it in the Q&A box. We'll monitor that and catch up on there. If for any reason you have to leave or you want to share this later on, we are recording today's session. And so you can catch up. It'll all be on the FSB website. And I would say that any links that our speakers mentioned today will be sent out to you in an email. Now, the exciting news as well today is all about taking breaks. So hopefully you've grabbed yourself a drink. Maybe it's a NESCAFÉ, maybe it's a cup of coffee. You will have a chance if you're logged in today to this call to win a year's supply of coffee. And we'll announce the winner by email later on. So keep an eye on your emails, and if you're a winner, then we'll get your details, where to send the coffee, and you get a year's supply of coffee. So there we are. My guests are, as I mentioned, Hannah, Nadia, Binny, and Andrew. I'm going to ask them to unmute themselves. And I'm going to come to Nadia first. Nadia, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your support from NESCAFÉ. This is a really key subject, wellness at work, loneliness at work. Stopping to take breaks. Tell us why that's so important.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, really great to be here, and thanks for all the panel members for joining me today. So NESCAFÉ's desire to help and facilitate well-being and connection at work kind of stems from some really compelling insight results that kind of will resonate with many industries. Well-being's a super hot topic, and actually since COVID, I believe, with hybrid models of working, it's actually become even more important and relevant. There was a survey that I'd read recently by Bain and Gray, who are a recruiter in the executive assistant market, and they actually studied that almost 2/3 of their employees are now hybrid working, and 21% of them are actually feeling loneliness, and that's actually increased since we're moving to remote working. So it's still relevant, but I suppose some of the stats that I'm going to share obviously came out of sort of COVID and all these big changes that have happened in the working environment. So the first one, which is huge, it's all about loneliness. So loneliness comes at a really considerable cost to employers, and it equates to £2.5 billion a year. This is a people management stat from 2022. 1 in 6 workers experience a mental health problem at any one time. This was a government report done in 2021. For UK employers, the cost of mental health related sickness absence, so that's people taking time off to recharge and recuperate, was a record-breaking £56 billion in 2021, which is just astonishing. And we know that 3 out of 10 UK business leaders are actually making employee health their #1 priority. So we know that they're actively trying to do something to make their environments more nurturing. And that's an HR News stat from 2021. And then finally, what really sort of resonated with me, and I think will resonate with you as business owners, is that for every £5, for every £1 spent, is actually the average return on employees investing in the well-being of their employers investing in the well-being of their employees. And this was in a study from Deloitte. So what this kind of tells us is that not only is investing in your employees the right thing to do and will make them happier and improve their experiences at work, but also it's going to financially benefit your business as well. People expect a lot more from their places of work now. The pressure is on business owners to really look after their teams and create cultures that nurture their employees. And so, yeah, here at NESCAFÉ, we were really passionate about this topic, and we've created the Make Chat Work campaign in order to help businesses create an internal culture at work that kind of nurtures their employees' well-being through encouraging interactions, connections, and engagement. And we ultimately believe that having more meaningful connections at work, via the coffee break, for instance, employees can actually create better working environments for their staff.
No doubt about it. And that's always been the case. I mean, even when I left school, we used to meet by the coffee machine, put a little 5p in, which gives my age away, and we would gather there. But people gather in little kitchenettes or even just around one little computer. But for people like me who are working from home, engagement is the key. And although it's nice to talk to someone on the phone or maybe over the screen, sometimes I can go a full day without speaking to anyone. I end up talking to myself, which isn't always the best conversation. So engagement, being with other people, that's important, isn't it, Nadia? How can we go about that?
Yeah, that's super important. And obviously, it's not always possible when you're remote working or you work in a hybrid model. And actually, from some of the insights that I'd shared earlier, we've actually sort of identified 3 key focus areas, which we believe are sort of modern tensions coming out, in the post-COVID world of work. The first being sort of employer pressure to actively promote well-being. So I mentioned the stat earlier about 3 in 10 UK business leaders making employee health their #1 priority. So we can see that this is in motion, and it's only going to get more as new models of working increase. The second tension, so being heightened desire for human connection, based on those figures that I'd mentioned about loneliness and the number of people suffering from mental health issues, something needs to change. It's not right. We can't continue at this rate. And, as the employee, there's a certain responsibility where, if you can do something, then, let's do it and make a big change together. And then the final tension that we'd identified was a drive within places of work to actually become more positive and nurturing environments. Hybrid is set to stay. It's not going anywhere. I myself am working from home today. So how can employers actually incentivize people to come back to work and also make sure that when they are back, they're having a great time, they feel valued, and they're happy. And it's these 3 tensions which we believe that actually the coffee break can sit in the middle of them and become the real facilitator of maximizing time away from work and driving meaningful moments between 2 or more people. Obviously, working remotely, as you mentioned, Dave, that might be picking up the phone to one of your friends or colleagues or family members. But ultimately, everybody loves to have a break, loves a great cup of coffee or a tea, if that's your preference. So encouraging employees to take more breaks is just a really simple way of promoting well-being in the workplace.
Brilliant. And that's a brilliant segue into Hannah Thomas. Hannah joins us as a solicitor from Markel Law. Hannah, I'm a sole trader, but if I was employing people and I'd have a responsibility, Nadia mentioned encouraging people to take breaks and to talk more and to look after their mental health. But as an employer, there are also some responsibilities.
Yeah, no, that's right, Dave. And Nadia gave a very nice introduction around obviously the key importance of encouraging well-being, and some really stark figures. Actually, 1 in 3 workers have experienced mental health difficulties. I think that really brings this session into focus. And of course, small business owners, it's really important that they look after their own well-being. But if business owners employ staff, then they need to be aware of their own legal obligations. So essentially their own duty of care towards employees' physical and mental health and safety in the workplace. And this is in terms of creating a safe working environment and system of work. And that's going to be based on the findings of your risk assessments, and as well as ensuring that staff receive proper instructions and training to carry out work safely. And there are certain employer statutory obligations which are really key, and they can also help contribute towards staff wellbeing if they're properly implemented. such as ensuring that work is properly organised and managed, so that staff can take their minimum rest breaks. They don't feel, look, I've really got to get this project done. I'm going to work for my rest break. I can catch up on some rest later, or that they don't feel so overwhelmed that work makes them actually unwell. And of course, there are minimum statutory requirements, such as if staff are disabled, there's an absolute obligation to make reasonable adjustments to the workplace or to the work itself. And now these are minimum, sort of more narrowly defined obligations which are set out in legislation. But we have very much seen a big shift in culture, and that's been happening over the last decade or so. But I think it's been brought into sharp focus as a result of the pandemic. And I think for the first time, I myself saw in COVID-19 risk assessments that wellbeing featured in most of those assessments. And there has been a tendency in the past for general risk assessments to be more broadly concerned with physical health and safety. So I think that's perhaps more of a key development. And it's also interesting because if you look at the health and safety executive management standards, they focus on 6 key areas of work design, which includes support that staff are given to carry out their task and the control that workers have over their workload that can really feed into their feelings of well-being. And if these key areas are not properly managed, then there is a risk of poor health, a lower productivity, which is going to be bad for the business, and also an increased risk of accident and sickness absence rate. So I'd really advise employers to perhaps have a look at those management standards or other management standards, because they really are key and they should sort of underpin how work is organised and the focus of the business. And I think also recent trends, as with Nadia, I'm working from home today, and we saw remote working. Obviously, it was a response to the public health emergency that we had, but that this has continued to some extent in terms of hybrid working. And this has really shifted the attention for employers and how can we ensure employee engagement? How can we keep our employees engaged? How can we ensure their well-being? How can we ensure that they're productive? Have they got too much work? Have they got not enough work? Is the work they're doing matching their skills? Have they got the right team in place, the right support in place? So this is really important, and this has been a focus as well. And there was a ACAS survey that was carried out in March this year, and this showed that 63% of employees in Britain felt stressed as a result of more recent issues, the rising cost of living, which of course is impacting business owners as well. But interestingly, only a third of those surveyed believe that their organisation was effective in managing work-related stress. So obviously this is still an area where employers need to work, or they are working on, and it's not an easy area, and there are often a number of considerations. And in light of these findings, ACAS has issued new guidance, which you can find on their website, which suggests, for example, signposting employees to financial advice in reputable organisations if they are struggling financially. And always the key, which is encouraging communications, and as well as ACAS has a lot of advice to employers on helping them managing wellbeing in the workplace. And I think it's really also important to remember that we talk about physical health, we talk about mental health, sometimes it's sort of separate aspects of health, but really they feed into each other. So poor mental health and anxiety can increase the risk of poor physical health and vice versa. And I also think it's really interesting to remember that employees rarely leave their job just for money alone, and quite often a working environment, feeling supported, opportunities for career development, as well as non-financial rewards are very important and key. And employees do tend to stay with employers where they feel supportive, where they feel that they're productive, and that there are sort of good opportunities for them in the workplace. I think in summary, that's probably where we are in terms of recent trends with the wellbeing conversation.
Lots to focus on, lots people can do, people taking their responsibilities, employers, but also employees as well, time to get up from your desk and not eat your sandwiches there, and lots of other things we can do. I'll come back to some of the steps that people can take, Hannah, later, but I'm going to bring Nadia back in here just to talk about your latest campaign, the Make Chat Work campaign, and some of the research and understanding behind that. Tell us a little bit about Make Chat Work.
Thanks, Dave. So the research that we actually conducted for the survey is actually specific to the construction industry. And this is because when we started to look into loneliness, there had been some concerns around wellbeing in the construction industry specifically, with a report from the All-Party Parliamentary Group on issues affecting men and boys. And this was released in September of 2022. And the recommendation from this was that more stringent mental health provisions needed to be written into construction contracts in order to tackle the issues at the root cause and not let it get to the level that it had reached, which obviously in some cases has been very upsetting. So at the end of the last year, we worked with a research agency. We surveyed 350 construction workers within sort of small to medium-sized enterprises, and we wanted to understand more about their experiences at work and what might enable them to, improve their work well-being. And one of the most compelling stats to come back from the survey is that almost half of them felt lonely in the workplace. Further insights revealed that 8 out of 10 of them felt that having opportunities to talk to colleagues around coffee breaks would make them feel less lonely. And in addition to this, almost all of them said that getting together for a coffee break is really important for team morale. And 94% of them said that they looked forward to a coffee break with colleagues. So the research kind of shows how powerful a coffee break can be, and they're not just a nice to have thing. Obviously, it's good to refresh with a drink, but actually they form a really important part of the day for employees, and particularly those who are experiencing, feelings of loneliness. Breaks give workers time that's kind of specifically carved out for them to connect. They can talk and engage with each other, and it gives them opportunity to just switch off from the day-to-day pressures, which is important for workers in any sort of business, but I suppose particularly a sector like construction and some of the related trade industries, which are typically male dominated. And sort of whilst these stats were specifically construction related, I think actually some of the themes could be, applied to and resonate with many industries. And ultimately, we want to help businesses improve their workplace well-being. Separately, I don't know if everybody remembers, but when they registered for the session, we actually asked 3 screener questions, and the results of these were sent to me yesterday morning. So we had about 189 respondents. So first question we asked was actually, do you ever feel lonely in the workplace? And really shockingly, almost half of you said that you did. So it's very similar to the results that we got from the construction survey. And I guess it just goes to show that it really does kind of resonate with lots of people. And one of the second questions was, would having more opportunities to talk to colleagues around coffee breaks make you feel less lonely? And again, almost half of you said that it was. So yeah, for me, the loneliness figure, it's really shocking. I don't think anybody wants to know that their colleagues are feeling like that. It's very sad to hear these numbers, but I really hope that by bringing it to everybody's attention, by sharing our learnings and some of the ideas, we can alleviate some of these feelings.
Yeah, absolutely powerful figures there, and it's just goes to show that you can be surrounded by colleagues and still feel lonely, because there is a process for addressing loneliness, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let's bring Binny in. Binny, you're a business owner. Binny, you've got your own business. What steps are you taking to address issues of loneliness in the workplace, taking breaks, and just well-being?
Yeah, so hello everybody. I'm new to actually recruiting people within the workplace. So I've been doing this for now a year and a half, where I've actually employed people, and it's different because finding staff was quite a challenge, and they wanted specific things. And so to recruit the right people to make my organisation work, I had to listen very carefully about what they wanted. And the first thing I found is that my chefs, they have a family life. And so if you think about a chef's environment, they normally work very unsociable hours in a way, don't they? Because they have morning shifts and then have evening shifts. These guys wanted to work daytime hours so that they could have a family life in the evening, and also things in the and also their weekends off. So for me, that was a key thing, to make sure that they left work at a good time to be with their family. So that's part of the mental well-being side of things. And the other thing that we did lots of things for the sort of acknowledgement that when they come to work, because how many people go to work and they don't even say hello to the people who are in the workplace? So we have a routine every morning that we say hello and see how they are and how their evening is, so that there's an acknowledgement there And actually in the evening when they leave, I thank them every single day for what they've done, and I hope they have a lovely time, whatever it's going to be. Because number one, I'm grateful that they're there, and number two, you know, I've had the work that I need doing, and they're grateful because they're leaving to go home to be with their family. So, you know, those kind of routines are quite new to me, but actually it's worked because they've stayed with me and it's been brilliant and they're happy. And I've had actually really good feedback from them with that. Another thing that I've implemented is like, because I'm working from home and they're in the kitchen. So, you know, that's sort of a change for me, because I'm no longer with them chopping onions now. They're doing all that. And there's been a slight change in the way I work. So I set up like a WhatsApp group for work days for the day during the day. And also I do one out of work. And the reason why I did that is because obviously during the day we communicate with what's going on with deliveries and that sort of thing. So they're informed all the time. And then in the evening, if they've left, I'll always send them some positive. If I've had amazing feedback from a customer, I just ping that across and then leave that with them and then let them decide whether they want to respond. But usually it's been a positive response to say, guys, you've done a fabulous job. And again, you know, it's just giving them something positive about what they're doing. And I think that's just so important. I do trust them. It's taken a while because obviously, you know, when you set up a business and it's your passion, you know, 110% I'm in there, you know, I'm doing everything. And letting go has been quite a challenge, you know. And now that I've got two trusted chefs who loving their job, I can start stepping back and doing all the things I need to do. Is actually, you know, not be in the business. I need to run the business. And, you know, that's part of, you know, employment, that finding the right people and trusting them, listening to what they want, and also engaging and training them, because I had to do all of those things to train them up to do the job, to have the standards that we expect. Once they've achieved that, which they have done, I feel like I can let them start to make a few decisions, because now I'm giving them ownership about what they're doing. So when we get amazing feedback, they feel proud about what we're doing. And, you know, I feel ever so proud that I've actually been able to do that. And I feel proud that they feel proud about it. So I've kind of put those, and because we're such a small team as well, you know, if somebody is off, if they're not feeling good, the whole team feels it. So today, actually, one of them wasn't well. So I went, right, okay, he wants a day off. And so it's fine, do it, because there's no point in coming into work feeling horrible, because obviously that's going to affect the team. Then I obviously got in touch with my other chef and said, are you okay? He said he's good. And I said, if you need me, I'll be there after 12, after this meeting, and I'll go and support him if he needs it. And that's how the kind of sort of setup we have, because if I didn't have that, then obviously things don't work out as well. And, you know, I'm glad that they can come to me with any problems and we can help to resolve it, because we're so tight and so small. The other thing I thought about is a chocolate biscuit. It's kind of bizarre. So we have these little meetings. So we have like, I tend to do meetings once a month in the unit, and we talk about things that are going on and, you know, problems we might have, or, you know, supplies aren't good and how we can resolve it. And if anybody's feeling a little bit low, I just bring in a gluten-free biscuit, because we're in a gluten-free environment. But you know what? A cup of tea or a coffee and a biscuit just helps everything, doesn't it? And it does in my place. And their faces just light up. It's, you know what, you don't have to do much, but a chocolate biscuit, it resolves everything that you need, you know, and calms things down. And then I've also sort of taken them out, because it's quite an intensive environment. So, you know, we're manufacturing 56,000 curries a year, you know, and these guys are working in an environment that's quite industrious and quite repetitive. You know, sometimes it's nice to go out of the workplace, take them out for like a morning breakfast, and, you know, the opportunity to talk about anything other than work, you know. It's good to get to know them and understand who they are, you know. Yeah. And sometimes they open up and other times they don't. But, you know, there's a fine line which I've learned about how far can I go without being too familiar, and also being an employer where I have to sort of stay back, you know. And it's just letting them open up if they want to.
I mean, you've given us some fantastic suggestions there, and you're obviously creating a culture, and I think that's what it's about. And you've owned this. You've seen the importance and the value and the reward, which is what it's all about. Nadia, let's come back to you. There must be other steps, things, simple things that people can do in the workplace. And we've already had a question thinking about people who are some people are extroverts, they like to chat, some people are introverts, some people are in between, maybe the report covered those sort of things, but there must be some steps.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, so obviously here at NESCAFÉ, we're wanting to encourage people to make chat work, you know, for their offices or places of work. And actually, we've created a suite of assets which are free to download. And I believe we'll be sharing the link at the end of this session. If not, we can definitely share it afterwards. And we've created these to support workplace wellbeing. The first and probably one of the most important ones is probably the Make Chat Work Guide, which is essentially a short booklet that provides some of the insight which I've mentioned today, knowledge, some practical tips on wellbeing in the workplace, and the importance of, you know, how a connection and taking coffee breaks, you know, can really have for people. The guide actually starts off by talking through some telltale signs for things to look out for if you suspect maybe somebody is suffering from stress. I think, you know, with remote working and hybrid working, with less face-to-face interactions, it's actually not always obvious, and you don't always, you know, it's not always, I suppose, obvious to the eye. So we've got some sort of typical behaviors, things to look out for. You know, stress might be, you know, taking time off work or arriving for work later than they usually do, you know, missing meetings, sudden mood swings. Second one being sort of burnout, you know, maybe they take a lot less pleasure in the job that they're doing. They feel like they've got a lack of belief in their own ability to complete tasks, or maybe they're not completing tasks as they usually would, or they're acting withdrawn. And then the third one is loneliness, and that sort of manifests itself as, you know, a lack of motivation, getting stressed really quickly, you know, and consistently feel tired and lethargic, and again, maybe taking more time off work. And the booklet also kind of contains a few really simple yet effective tips for both employers and employees to support more meaningful breaks. And Binny had some great suggestions there, and I really felt like I agreed with a lot of what she was saying, and some of them actually, yeah, doubled up on what I'm saying. But I suppose some of the suggestions that, you know, are within the booklet include, you know, onboarding. It can sometimes be a really costly process, both in time and money. And actually, I think, you know, if you're encouraging connection and breaks early on, you know, if you put this within your onboarding process, you sort of build it into everybody's mindsets, and it just becomes, you know, a pattern and just part of everyday working life. Regular check-ins as well. For new starters especially, you know, it can be really daunting starting a new job, not knowing anyone, not knowing what you're doing. And it's great for them to have a forum to be able to open up in. You know, keeping spirits up and, you know, investing in people early on will make them feel valued, and that you're more likely to sort of retain talent and they stay motivated and become more active members within your team. We've got another suggestion of having a champion who can champion the coffee break. So somebody who's single-handedly, you know, allocating time, creating those designated spaces, encouraging people to take breaks. And I think this could be a really sort of easy thing for somebody to be delegated with. And actually, you know, it's a really nice thing to be known for as well. You know, someone who's actively promoting taking that step away from your desk and coming together and ensuring that everybody's sort of being taken care of. Breakout room, so space as well. I think not everybody's got the luxury of having a kitchen or a breakout area. Obviously, if you do, then this is fundamentally, you know, it's a bit of a no-brainer. You've got somewhere you can sort of dedicate your time to relax and interact. But sometimes you just need a nook, or maybe you just want to go out for a walk, you know, or social days, as Binny was saying, you know, maybe you want to take the thing straight out of the office and be somewhere completely removed. So yeah, encouraging your employees to really step out the workplace, going for a walk, having a cuppa with a colleague, you know, and checking out the local area can be really, really simple yet, you know, effective ways of sort of boosting morale. And I think, you know, fundamentally, you know, the coffee break is a really cost-effective way of bringing people together. It doesn't cost a lot, you know, it's a few pennies for a cup of coffee. And I think especially given, you know, with the inflation and the cost of living crisis and, you know, the pressures that employers are facing at the moment, it's something that we could implement really simply and cost effectively. other items that we've got within the toolkit, so that was, I suppose, what was within the guide, is an interior design guide. So maybe if you're not quite sure about how your space is working and you want to maximize the space that you do have, there's some really great tips in that. And we've also got a few sort of printable assets. So somebody mentioned maybe if you're not an extrovert and maybe you don't always sort of lead the conversation, we've got like a coffee preference chart, which is essentially, you know, how do you like your coffee? It's a bit of fun. It's a sheet just to jot down how everybody likes their coffee, but it's a way of starting those conversations with people and showing that you kind of care. And then, you know, an icebreaker and a conversation starter as well, just to, you know, help ignite those conversations for maybe people who aren't so natural at coming forward, and it kind of just boosts that interaction between co-workers. So yeah, lots of different assets. As I mentioned, they're all completely free to download. They're hosted on the Make Chat Work landing page. So yeah, I would encourage everybody to check them out and download them when they can.
Yeah, and we'll just re-emphasize the fact that the email that will come out to you, where we will reveal whether you've won a year's supply of NESCAFÉ, that NESCAFÉ Gold, I think it is, that will come out to you, will contain those links that are being mentioned as the chat goes on. Lots of practical ideas. We've had somebody mention in the Q&A, it's not really a question, somebody from the NHS that said that before they put a room together where people can go, people were having to be sent home. But just to take a break, when, especially during stressful times, and you can imagine in the NHS, those occasions often happen. So to be able to go to a room, which is, as you say, nicely designed, I think in the NHS, they put bean bags in there, chill out room, have a coffee. Yes, it sometimes can get a little bit expensive. There might have to be a little charge or a donation that you make, but gosh, wouldn't it be worth it just to be able to go in there? So thanks to Sylvia, I think it was, who put that suggestion or told us that little example. So it is working. Now, Andrew, I'm going to come to you next. I will say that I would dearly love to colour in the background that you've got there. Now, I don't know whether you're going to talk about that, but, you know, there is some evidence, isn't there, that suggests colouring in just can take your mind off work, relax. That is the perfect picture. But you work from home. You're a sole trader like me. What are you doing? What steps would you take? What would you advise for people who are perhaps feeling lonely, disengaged, perhaps just a little bit out of the equation?
Well, the most important thing first about the wallpaper, you're not coming anywhere near it. It took a long time to line that up. Me and my wife were there. It was a long job. What am I doing? You know, as entrepreneurs, working from home, we all know we need to have a break. One should have a coffee. One should connect with one's friends. But when it's all kicking off, it's all busy. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. So you ask me what I'm doing. Well, yesterday I had a great plan. I was going to go for a walk halfway through the morning. I needed to go to the pharmacy because hay fever's driving me around the bend. Did I have time to go? No, I had no time to go and rubbed my eyes incessantly all day long. By the time I had time to go, the pharmacy had shut. I was telling myself all this stuff, I'm too busy, I'm too busy. And so some of getting on top of that, having the breaks that we need, it's being real with ourselves. It's trying to remind ourselves of things that are true so that we can override this, I'm too busy, I'm too busy. So for example, one of the things, I didn't do this yesterday very effectively, but I do on other days, is I remind myself of the research coming out from the 4-day working week. We know there's a whole ton of research done in Iceland, 2016 to 2019. We then replicated the 4-day working week experiment in the UK on a grander scale, drawing in more employers. And you would have expected that when people are paid the same amount of money and they can work less hours, well, of course, they're going to be happier. Of course, they're going to feel better about their work. But you would also expect there'd be a trade-off, bit of a loss of output. They're working less hours. But there wasn't. That was the extraordinary thing, that less hours did not necessarily mean less output. In fact, it didn't mean less output. It was carefully managed. It was carefully prepared for in the different employees. So I remind myself of that truth, that downtime isn't downtime. It's uptime. It is an investment that actually, if I take this time out, actually, it's not lost time. My output through the rest of the day is probably going to increase because of this time that I took out. I also remind myself of the Harvard research, 70-year-long research on what is it that gives us a healthy and long life? What's the secret ingredient? And they found that more than anything else, it was the quality of our social connections. Over 70 years, that was the determining factor more than any other factor. And so I try to remind myself of these truths when I'm telling myself I don't have enough time. And there's a really good book actually by a guy called Rutger Bregman called Humankind, bestseller, international bestseller. And he has this hypothesis, which I find quite compelling, that we often think that we prevailed as a species over Neanderthal people because they had the brawn and we had the brains. But his point is actually Neanderthal people had bigger brains than we did. What enabled us to prevail was Neanderthal people weren't very sociable and we were. So we shared our ideas with each other. We collaborated, we innovated. It's at the heart of why our species has prevailed. And it should be at the heart of your business plan, of your day planning, because when it is kicking off, the emails are pinging in, you have to schedule your day so that you absolutely take a break. So I connect in with various networks. I've worked really hard with neighbors and friends recently because I'm a sole entrepreneur. We've even got an allotment and we've got a whole new circle of friends, and the allotment committee is very, very volatile as well. There's lots of scandal, but lots of friends. And we really work hard to compensate for the fact that I'm a sole entrepreneur and I work and speak in different businesses. So I need those close contact. We all do. We all need that break. Last thing I'm going to share is neuroscience categorically shows if you want those aha moments, those incredible ideas, you're more likely to get them when you are in your alpha state of brainwaves, which basically means you're happy, you're relaxed, you're calm, you've stepped away from the noise, you've broken state, you're now doing something else. You're allowing yourself to daydream, perhaps think, allowing your mind to wander, perhaps you're chatting with someone else, but that is when you're more likely to get your very best ideas. So you really do need to schedule the break into your day. So I try to remind myself of these truths. Sometimes it works, and sometimes, like yesterday, I have a bad day.
Brilliant. And at least you're open and honest with yourself, because I think sometimes we can beat ourselves up about, oh, I didn't take a break today. Oh my God, I'm a failure. I need to do. Chill out. I think colouring your wallpaper. I'm coming round. I'm going to get my pencils out.
No, absolutely. Have a good laugh. I mean, the kids have laughed and laughed about my eyes and the state they were in last night, because I had all day to go to the pharmacy that's just around the corner, but I was too busy. So too busy. Have a good laugh at yourself. Yeah,
you wouldn't have been too busy if you'd got a winning lottery ticket. You'd have been out the door and cashed it in. So it's about priorities as well, I think, isn't it, sometimes? But Andrew, we'll come back to you. You're right, by the way, the first events I hosted live after the pandemic as an MC were crazy. I couldn't get people to show up because they were so pleased to be in a room together, interacting, particularly those that hadn't had the opportunity to work together, you know, those that perhaps were sole traders coming back together. So that's brilliant. Now, we've had a question, and I feel like it's directed at me. It's made me smile because I am the person in this question, and it actually relates to what I wanted to ask you about, and that's unplanned breaks, unplanned interactions. What about the people like me who used to constantly get told off at work for talking too much at the expense of work? So I would get pulled up on the shop floor back in the day. Dave, you know, you're there again, mate, talking, get on with your work. You're always interacting, you talk too much. So whoever's put that in, it's an anonymous one, I think. Brilliant, fair play. Those interactions for me were really important, and they were probably right. I probably did take too many times to stop and talk to everybody. So Nadia, the question is, what about unplanned breaks? What's the research tell us?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I think we call them the water cooler moments, don't we? The unplanned breaks. So, so here at NESCAFÉ, we actually devised a piece of sort of academia. We named it Smart Coffee, but essentially it combines our understanding of the coffee category as obviously industry experts with the science behind how the right hot beverage can inspire productive behaviours and contribute to more effective workplaces. So, as we've mentioned a few times now, you know, the world of work has changed drastically over the past few years, and the way, you know, in which we're using the office has evolved with it. You know, some companies, maybe some more of the corporate ones in the city I'm very familiar with, have, you know, returned to the old status quo of going in, you know, 5 days a week. But many employees are now, you know, hybrid or fully remote, with most businesses actually, you know, listening to their staff and giving them the freedom to find sort of their own sort of flexible footing. And anchor days as well, they're becoming, I suppose, a modern necessity in businesses as they maybe scale down their size and, you know, want to sort of promote more flexible patterns. We know that actually 90% of employees want to continue working from home at least part of the time in the future, and actually 50% of companies want their employees back in the office full time. So, how can we restore that office footfall? It's integral to fostering collaboration, camaraderie, and engagement. And actually, research shows that connection between staff suffers in remote-only environments. We've got that decline in spontaneous interaction, so those water cooler, unplanned moments that you mentioned, and this leads sort of directly to dwindling feelings of community and collaboration, which doesn't, no business would like to experience that. But we also know that those in-person, face-to-face meetings are actually 34 times more successful than asking the same favor over email. So you can spend hours trying to work out what somebody's saying over email, whereas if you just picked up the phone or saw them, you'd be able to get the answer straight away, and it'd be a lot more obvious. So numerous studies have shown that actually it's more difficult to build trust virtually as well, and nobody wants a disconnected, sort of low trust, low efficient organization. So our research, the Smart Coffee research, actually found that hot drinks can be the beating heartbeat of informal collaborations. But you don't have to go to extremes. You don't need a dedicated coffee shop or even like a self-serve unit to help employees stay connected. Open plan offices and most offices will have some sort of a kitchenette, and that is actually where most of those unplanned interactions happen. It's the water cooler moment, it could be the coffee break moment, but obviously we know that there's a high footfall going into these areas, and actually it's in these high footfall areas where most of the collaboration and interaction, those kind of micro meetings that you have with people, where you find out more of that information that can really spark ideas. And this is something that obviously we've lost in a big way since going remote or hybrid. So we really feel like coffee can kind of bring people back together. Put a great coffee in your kitchen. It's going to bring people back to the office, and they're going to be at that coffee station and make a coffee and have a longer dwell time there. And that will obviously encourage conversation and drive productivity, and creativity as well. And I think back to some of the ideas I had, getting somebody to champion the break and really get people to sort of move away from their desk and encourage them to have these moments will really sort of benefit your workspace. So, open plan offices and obviously areas of high footfall are key areas where if you had, say, a coffee solution there, and like I said, it doesn't have to be, a really sort of fancy cafe or coffee station. It can just be a tin, couple of mugs. You need to have access to a kettle, and you can really kind of drive those unplanned interactions and boost the collaboration within your workforce.
Brilliant. Hannah, I'm going to come to you next. And what I'm going to do now, because I think we've set the scene, I think we know the scale of I'm not going to call it a problem, the scale of the thing we want to tackle. And so I'm going to start coming at you rapidly now around the screen. We've had some questions in advance. One of them I think is probably best answered by you, Hannah, with your solicitor hat on. If you're an employer and you know someone struggling, what sort of action should you be taking? And as I say, we're going to come around the screens now and we're going to get some of these solutions out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing to do as a very first step is to speak to them in confidence, to try and find out what sort of issues they are having. You can ask questions such as, I notice you seem to be struggling a little bit with certain tasks. Is there anything that you think we may be able to assist you with? Or is there any particular reason why you think this may be? And this is going to help the employer with signposting then to any relevant support, perhaps signposting to organisations such as Mind, and so forth, and encouraging them to sort of take ownership as well in terms of making an appointment with their GP or signposting to any relevant counselling support. I think what's really important to bear in mind is employers aren't expected to act as counsellors. It's not really often appropriate to do so. They haven't got medical training, so it's more around signposting. But also from a business point of view, if someone's struggling with performance, then ensuring that you think about the rest of your team and the overall in terms of for the business, ensuring that other people aren't picking up the slack overly, and ensuring that everyone is well supported, and just really organising and managing work tasks. I think is really key.
Brilliant, great. Binny, quick answer from you on this one, because you've already touched on this, but I think it's important. So what's the one thing that people can do, with remote working to support each other? What are you doing? That one big thing that you can do?
I think for me, because I work from home and the chefs are at the kitchen, I either cycle or walk to work or run to work. So it gets me out, but they also see me so that they know there's the boss is here, but also, I'm there to help them if there's any questions or anything like that. And I can put the kettle on and get them out of the kitchen and promote that sort of, you know, environment where they have a break, because sometimes they forget to do it and other times I have to encourage them to do it. So yeah, for me to get out of the office to go and see them is what I would do. And I guess that's me doing the hybrid work of working at home and going to the production unit and making sure that we communicate together. And that is one of my tips.
Brilliant. Great tip. Love that. That leads me beautifully into Andrew. Andrew, Binny mentioned getting out, you know, maybe walking, going to work on the bike, whatever it might be. What's your view on having no screens on, or just literally going out and having a break outside? Or if you are working on your own, do we really need to be doing this over a screen? What's your view on that?
Well, that is one heck of a question. How do I do that quick? What I do think in terms of scheduling time for a break and screens and all that stuff, managing screens, is it helps if you do have some kind of a system that enables you to plan in your breaks through the day, whether you've got a diary, whether you've got an online planner, that you then apply rules and protocols that work well to that system. So I have a hardback A4 diary. I block out my hours. I do it at the beginning of the day. I have little systems that help pick up on things that I'm procrastinating on, like going to the pharmacy. But like, I schedule in breaks through the day, and I schedule in when my phone, the data mobile and Wi-Fi will be on, and when it will be off, because I have so much going on social media. And of course, social media brings us together like never before, but then somehow we're never more apart today with what we have with screens. So for me, it's about being intentional. It's about having some kind of a time management plan. I do quite a bit of stuff on sort of productivity. What are some of the rules and protocols you bring into your plan so that you can get more done when you are working, so you can remind yourself that actually I've got loads of stuff done, I can take a break. Bear in mind with the 4-day working week that those organizations that took part did a heck of a load of planning before that experiment took off, streamlining things, putting systems in place so that truly their employees could work less hours but get the same amount done. So we need to do the same as entrepreneurs. If you haven't got a time planning system tried and tested and thought through, then you need to get one. Because what will happen if you don't is you'll come onto a session like this and go, oh, I definitely should have a few breaks. And by next week, you'll have forgotten all about it and you won't be having breaks. So it's having a system in place, a flexible guide that helps you through the day that you're going to need.
Yeah, love the word system. You know, having those in place. We should all have systems and processes, and building well-being and taking breaks as a system, even if it's just reminders, you know, shutting down apps, that sort of thing. I think that's really useful. Veronica has said online that as a coach, she's not just encouraging people to take a break, but to get up, move around with a coffee in your hand and get off your backside a little bit. You know, there's a lot of research suggests sitting down isn't good for us, you know, so standing desk, moving around, keeping active, reducing screen time, or at least coming off the screen every 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever suits you to go and give yourself a break. Nadia, another question that came in. This one, it kind of relates to, if I'm looking to join a company, is there any evidence that people are looking for companies that look after their staff?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so when we obviously did the survey with our 350 construction workers, we did actually ask about what would make you more likely to work for an employer. And actually, over 3/4 of them, that's 77% of them, said that they'd be more likely to work for their employer if that employer ensured that they had regular breaks. And this was obviously quite surprising for us. I mean, obviously, it's great to know that such a simple thing can be quite effective, but it actually was cited higher as, you know, something like health or life insurance, you know, discounts and rewards, development plans, you know, gym membership and things like that. So, I mean, I feel like I mentioned it a few times, but I think, you know, taking a break and encouraging your staff to have a break is a really simple way of showing you that they care. It will encourage them to stay with you. They're more likely to take the job if they know that that's obviously part of sort of your daily schedule. And also, it's really cost effective. It's not going to cost you like health or life insurance is, as amazing as those things are. It's a really simple and effective way of doing it. And you don't need masses of space. You don't need masses of sort of equipment to be able to do that either. You know, it's a couple of mugs, coffee, tea bags, you know, whatever your preference is, and just encouraging people to take that break. So yeah, really surprising, but obviously reassuring as well. And it's something that people can implement really easily.
Brilliant. I mean, I know of some employers that have gone real full on with this. I know of one who's got a series of holiday homes, and he allows or encourages staff to have a free break for a week in one of his holiday homes. How cool is that? It's one of the most...
Where does he work?
Yeah.
Sign us up.
Yeah, but brilliant. But guess what? As Andrew said, as you've all said, productivity goes up, the value that not many people leave that company, I can tell you, so staff retention, things like that. Hannah, we know that we're in a cost of living crisis. People are struggling to pay bills, but there must be some impact on well-being. Where's the next dollar coming from, or pound in our case? Is there an obligation for employers to think about that and address it as an issue, which it clearly does impact people's well-being and mental health?
It clearly does, and I again refer back to the ACAS study, which shows obviously the stress that some employees are feeling as a result of these various pressures, including financial pressures. Now, I would start by saying there isn't a legal obligation as such to assist staff where they are finding it difficult financially, but it obviously absolutely makes sense to provide that support. And it can be just simply signposting to an organisation. There are a lot of good organisations out there that can provide a little bit of support, counselling support around managing debt, helping signpost people to relevant organisations that can help with that. And it might be that, I think communication is always going to be the key one, just having a conversation with those individuals. I know that some employers have, for example, offered a one-off bonus, like a cost of living bonus, a discretionary one. Some employers may want to offer loans. Some may be prepared to advance wages, but I think it's really important, if you're going to do that sort of thing, it's very important to have an agreement in writing so that both sides know what the expectations of what the agreement is, so that if anything goes wrong, obviously you can fall back on that, what has been agreed. So yeah, there are resources out there, but I really think it comes down to communication really, as a first. Yeah. And
also something FSB campaigns for, especially for people like me, Andrew, Binny, self-employed people, is that you get paid on time. So if you're owed money, pay us when we want to be paid, not 3 months down the line when the stress levels are so high because you're wondering, am I going to have to start chasing this? It's stressful. We've done the work. Just give us the money. Okay, we're going around the screen again rapidly. Binny, you're the boss. Who looks after you? Who tells you to look after yourself? What kind of strategies there in a brief kind of punchy do this?
My husband, he's very good at that. He kind of tells me what to do as well, because he encourages me to get off my backside and go out and do things. But also, we were also talking about the staffing side of things, and I mentioned it earlier that I listen to my staff, and if they want to have the daytime to work and the evenings and weekends with their families, then I provided that for them. And for me, my top tip would be staff retention is to listen to them, because they will stay longer and be happy. And that makes me happy. And that's it.
Brilliant. One or two people, and I can understand, so I've always used my example of somebody perhaps took advantage and took too many breaks. Then there's the cost of the coffee. I mean, obviously today someone will win a year's supply, but there must be some ways around, we used to all in our office put £1 in, I'm going back a few years, £1 in a tin every week, and that went and bought the coffee. So we'd all contributed to it, or 1 week I'd buy the coffee and then next week someone else would bring a jar in. So there are ways. Someone's talked about loneliness. Andrew, a tractor driver in a field all day. I mean, what about those people that are literally stuck in the middle of a field? What would they do?
Yeah, you can't magic up a friendship network to come and sit with you in a tractor. But what I try and do, like, I'm not in a tractor field, I live in the middle of Birmingham, but I deliberately am part of a few networks. I have quite a healthy social life in the evening, but some of those networks in the day are really, really useful. And we'll phone each other. I'm in an accountability group, sort of a business accountability, where we keep in touch with each other. So that's in addition to my wife holds me accountable. So whatever circumstances you find yourself in, there will be some things that you can do within your control to improve the quality of your social connections. some of you will be in more complex circumstances, but there will be stuff you can do.
And just a quickie to you, Andrew, because I know you've looked into this. Are there an optimum number of breaks you should be taking in a day, or is that very much down to the individual?
Well, so you have, of course, the Pomodoro technique, which a lot of people love, where you work for 25 minutes and then you're off for 5 minutes and then you're on for 20. I just can't get on with that. And I think you have to try and test what works for you in terms of your energy levels and how you're feeling. I personally work very well with hourly blocks and a short break. But if I'm really in the zone with something and I have the ability to work over a period, then I probably will. So some of it is really checking in with yourself. Actually, I know I'm losing my focus a bit now. I'm looking out the window. I'm not in a helpful way. So I don't think there's an optimum break or that you should have this many, but we know that when you do regularly break, you properly break state, that it is very helpful for all the reasons we've suggested: movement, for your sense of well-being, for trying to get yourself into, like I say, these alpha wave point in the day where your brain is just very relaxed and calm and happy. And you're not going to get those if you're tapping away at your laptop, juggling a million emails. And we know, by the way, anyone trying to multitask, that most people actually can't multitask. What you're doing when you're trying to juggle two tasks is your brain is rapidly switching from task to task, which is exhausting and draining in itself. So trying to get better at doing one task at a time and trying to support people to do one task at a time is another step forward.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I can't believe how quickly the time has gone. We do have a little bit left to rapidly go around the screen again. So if you're listening in wherever you are today, focus now, because these are going to be 4 rapid. Here's what you can do. Top tips. Okay, Nadia, let's start with you. Go. The number 1 tip.
So the number 1 tip, from me will be, coffee breaks are really simple and cost effective. Get people together, encourage people taking time away so that they can connect and have those meaningful conversations. Embed that culture of regular breaks within your workplace from the start, so that it's normalized. People will feel much more comfortable and staff will be happier and actually become more productive, which is going to be good for you and good for your business.
Brilliant. Lovely summing up. Hannah, same to you.
Yeah, well, my key word would be communication for this session. I mean, encouraging managers to ensure they set up regular meetings with staff, one-to-ones or group meetings. And this is going to really help them set their expectations, ensuring workload is appropriate, identifying any support training required, and it's going to mean that employers are better equipped to address issues as they arise before they become really problematic. So that'd be my number 1 tip.
Fantastic. Binny, I mean, I know you've given us a couple of quick ones. Your big final one?
Go out for a daily walk or do some Pilates or something like that. That's
Brilliant.
it.
Choose something that, perfect. Choose something that suits you. Your number 1 thing, Pilates and walking. Fantastic. And finally, Andrew, one from you.
Well, 2 very quickly. Stop calling it downtime. It's uptime. Think of it as uptime, as an investment in your productivity and the quality of your ideas through the day. And do yourself a favor, put your data, mobile and Wi-Fi off and only turn it on in scheduled slots during the day, and just see what happens for yourself for the week.
Brilliant. And that becomes a habit. And that's it. What do they say? It takes 30 days to break a habit or to form a habit. So, if you do that every day for 30 days, it'll become a habit. And that would be a really brilliant thing. Listen, guys, Hannah, Nadia, Binny, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really interesting conversation. There's still a lot more to come. So everyone who's been tuned in today, keep an eye on your email, not least of all, because you could win a year's supply of NESCAFÉ. So we'll be emailing somebody very shortly to tell you that you've won and get the details of where to send that coffee to, courtesy of NESCAFÉ. Remember also that any links, any useful information, we will put that in the email as well. So don't worry if you didn't write it down. That will also be sent to you. But if you didn't get to watch the whole of this, or you just caught the end, then you want to watch it again, it will be available on the FSB website on a catch-up. And finally, I want to thank FSB. I'm a proud FSB member. It's a brilliant organisation for supporting small business owners and sole traders like me through all sorts of things, not least of all, looking, of course, at wellbeing as we have today. There's a whole series of webinars that you can catch up with including this one. It'll be uploaded soon. We've recorded it today. And a final big thank you to NESCAFÉ. Nadia, please pass on our kind regards to everyone. The report, Make Chat Work, that'll be revealed to everyone as well. It's well worth reading. But for now, listen, everybody, you've had a bit of a break, but you have been listening to us. So go in the garden. Iced coffee is another good alternative. It is. Or go out and just wander around wherever you are. Take a break now. Enjoy it, embrace it, and schedule it. And I think that's the key message. So for now, I've been Dave Sharp. It's been a pleasure to be your host. Thanks for joining us. Take care and take a break.